Okay, our first speaker on the Biquad antenna. Our speaker was first licensed in 1981 and enjoyed the second half of the solar cycle, or solar cycle 21, easily making worldwide contacts on 10 metres using an FT 707 and a simple dipole antenna. After moving to Melbourne in the 1990s, he became interested in digital modes such as AMTOR and packet radio. More recently, he had been playing with digital voice, including building the P25 D-Star repeater at VK2 RNS and setting up All-Star for the 2 metre repeater. After getting an IC 9700, he started researching antennas for 23 centimetre. The Biquad caught his attention and he picked up one at the Oxley Region Field Day for $5. More recently, he's been playing with a reticulum, which supports data over inexpensive LORA modules. These are available in the 915 megahertz and 433 LIPD bands. It seemed the Biquad might also be a good antenna for at least the 915 megahertz bands. Members, please welcome VK2DIO, Rob Dolphin.
So, first thing, don't play to the... Oh, is that better? Yeah, okay. I don't claim to be a theoretical expert on the Biquad. I've looked up some basic stuff, but as Al said, I got my 9700 for my 60th birthday, so that was a really good present. I'm pretty happy with that. I didn't really need one. I'm not doing satellite or anything fancy like that, but if you've got a 7300 and you want to be up on the higher bands, hey, get a 9700 if you can. So I really liked it. I'd never had a 23 centimetre radio before, and it was actually like the day before my birthday, and I went, oh, I get to unwrap that tomorrow, and I got no antenna at all. So I jumped online and I built, not this one, this is for 900, but I built a ground plane, and actually from where I am, it's in the window of my shack, and I can get Chatswood and Dural on 23 with it, which is nice. Sometimes Chatswood's a little bit noisy, but Dural's rock solid, and I only have to run like less than a watt. And so it's nice when you've got a bit of line of sight. I'm over the other side, I'm at Mount Kohler on a ridge, so Dural's obviously fairly easy. But I thought, you know, if I'm going to do anything more with this, I'm going to want to look at antennas with gain. And so obviously things like Yagi's, great, but I don't know, just surfing around the internet, it was like, hey, you can build a Biquad antenna for the higher bands. And, you know, at those kind of frequencies, you know, they're fairly physically compact and got some really nice characteristics. You know, if you've got a really long Yagi or you've got a phased array of Yagis or something like that, you can kind of get lots of gain and fairly narrow. But, you know, often we're kind of not 100% sure where our heading's going to be with stuff. And having a bit of forgiveness and still having a bit of gain feels like a good idea. And so if we look at the Biquad, get some facts about it. I've got a note here. Let me just open my notes and bring up my Biquad facts. So basically, if we think about, one of the first good things about a Biquad is, if we get a quad, sorry, drawing, Jesus, this is terrible. Okay, and we feed it here or we feed it here, it's about 112 ohms. Okay, which is nice. And then I've got a quad that I use for 6 meters, which works really, really well. It's a simple quad, and I've got around about a meter of 75 ohm coax there, and that'll bring that down 50 ohms-ish. It matches it pretty well. It's actually a really nice project, slightly off topic, but you build this quad for 6 meters, and you buy one of those the 1 metre 75 ohm leads that are available everywhere with 2 BNCs on it, and then you've got matching for that thing. And if you feed it here, it's vertically polarized. Yep, and if you feed it here, it's horizontally polarized. So it's pretty easy to change the polarization by either moving the feed point, or in my one, I just can physically turn the thing around. Moderately directional, as we know, but a nice antenna. Okay, now if we get that same thing, and here I am going to try and, now why don't I add to it? If we get the same thing and we put another quad here, right, and we feed here, okay, so we're feeding, one conductor's feeding here and one conductor's feeding here. There's a gap between those. That's two quads in parallel. What's 112 over 2? 56. So you've actually got an antenna that's fairly close to 50 ohms already. So that's nice. That's convenient for things you want to do. So you don't have to worry about matching too much. Ideally, you would have some sort of one-to-one choke or something, because you're going from a balanced to an unbalanced coax, and you're going to get some common mode current. But I haven't done that with any of the ones I've built so far. I'm not operating that higher power level, and it hasn't been an issue.
More directional in a single quad?
Yeah, it has. It's got a little bit of gain over a dipole. Honestly, I haven't looked up the characteristics of that. I did make this and play with it, but I figure it's not that much of a benefit over a dipole for these higher frequencies, that I'm really mainly interested in the next variant, which is you take this one and you put a reflector behind it, and then now it becomes interesting. All right? But I was thinking of an omnidirectional antenna that might have a benefit over this. And you can get two of those and you can feed them 90 degrees, but then once again you're going to be dropping your impedance down again. So you could phase them or something. That's a future experiment to make like a sort of turnstile quad, I guess you'd call it. That might be really nice at these kind of frequencies, and once again it would actually make, you can see at the 900 meg, you could see that would be quite a practical antenna to put on top of something. So that's a future experiment to look at. To get that directionality, but in both, not crossed at 90 degrees. So yeah, I can't remember. I forgot to look up the gain figure that you get if you just do this. But I think it's got a little gain over a dipole, and yeah, it's going to be broadside directional, and a little more directional.
Dimensions as parts of.
Yeah, that's a full wavelength. So that's a full wave there. So each leg is a quarter wave. Yeah. Let me just look. I've got my facts here. Okay, so so then, if you put a reflector behind it, you get somewhere in the order of 11 or 12 dBi, and that is useful. What's also useful is it's actually got a beam width of about 70 by 70. So that's quite a good area with a reasonable amount of gain, to your 3 dB points. And that's part of the reason I found it interesting. So if I tell you about where I got my first one, so I wanted to build one for 23 and I hadn't got around to it. And I went up to the Oxley field day like a little time after, and I saw a guy standing there holding this. I said, oh, that's a biquad. I'm interested in those. I want to build one. He goes, I don't want this anymore. Give me $5 and it's yours. And I went, okay. So I pulled $5 out and I gave it to him. And so I had that. And he goes, actually, I've also got another one I don't want. So you can have that as well. So I got two of them for $5. This is also, so these are both for 23 centimetres. You can see one of the differences here is in the size of the reflector. Yeah, bigger is better. You're going to get better front to back ratio with the reflector. You're going to get your probably a little tighter beam width with it, etc. So this one would outperform this one. In fact, when I stuck this on the VNA, it resonates I think a little higher than what I want, so it needs some tuning.
How far is the reflector from?
In theory, it can be up to a quarter wavelength. In practice, what you actually do, and that's why this one's harder, because you had to sort of dead reckon this one. But the reality is what you do is you make this, and if this thing on its own is resonating, you're going to need it to resonate high. Because when you put the reflector behind it, you're going to drop the resonance. And I can't remember what it turns out to be, but actually what you do is you slide this reflector back and forth, and it'll bring your point, bring your SWR the centre of where you want. So once again, I don't pretend to be a great antenna theorist, but the great thing about these is that. And in theory also, you should continue your grounding from the back plane to the outside of your feed line that feeds the one side of the quad. But because I bought this one and it's been super effective for me, and it doesn't do that, the reflector's got nothing to do with it electrically, it gives you more options in building because, obviously having to have that outside conductor. So a common construction is this kind of thing, to get some sort of tubing and then either run the feed line up it, or some people even just strip the braid off if they get the right size, bit of coax, and then you can solder 2 to the centre conductor and then 2 to the outside, and you've got your feed. I'm not sure how this one is fed because it's nicely sealed up and I haven't looked inside of it. I didn't pull it apart. All I've done is just this reflector. So if at home, if I use this one, obviously I get dural, I get full quieting to dural anyway, and I still get full quieting to dural. If I point this at Chatswood, then I get full quieting to Chatswood instead of it being noisy, so that's fantastic. And then we did the VHF UHF field day, and where's my mast? I saw him earlier. Walter XWB, there he is. He makes a great antenna mast for this antenna. So we did the VHF field day and I brought my 9700 out. And where did we work? Somewhere down like Southern Highlands and someone up in the Blue Mountains, didn't we? Yeah. Just by listening for some CQs on 23 for the field day, and Walter was just found the direction and then stood there while I made the contact.
How were you using?
9700 is 10 watts.
10 watts maximum, but I think I was only running about a watt. I don't usually run 10. Good question, I can't remember. We got up to was it Springwood?
Yeah, somewhere up there.
And for Golden Jubilee Fields, down in Wahroonga. And then the other one was somewhere down south. Sorry, I haven't got the exact, but I was pretty happy with it, right, for 23. And, this wasn't up high. It was being held by some guy standing next to me. Golden Jubilee is a good location. It's nice and clear. But, that to me sort of proved that antenna had some efficacy and was useful.
A single sideband or FM?
It was FM, wasn't it? I can't remember. Might have been sideband. No, I think it was FM. I really think it was. But anyway, so that's it. I haven't done nearly as much with 23 as I would like, and I already had that, so I didn't need to make one, and my life is very busy, so it didn't get priority. But somewhere in all of this history, Al, this is because he plans these things a long way ahead, had said, have you got any ideas of people who can present stuff for Antenna Day? And I'm like, I don't know, I made a couple of suggestions. He goes, anything you know about? I said, I don't really know about them, but I'm interested in biquads. And he goes, well, I'll put you down for the biquad. So that's kind of that's part of it as well. So I'd already bought one. I didn't have to make one, but
Give you $10 for it.
Nah, I love it. It's worth more than $10 to me. Fast forward, and then I became interested in originally playing a little bit with Meshtastic, and then Steve AAV said, hey, check out this thing called Reticulum. And he told me about Reticulum, and I found it fascinating. Basically it's a complete networking technology. Like, you'd need no IP. You could build a worldwide network with many, many thousands of nodes, and it can do everything the internet does, transfer files and do chats and do all the things. But it was designed to work over low speed things because the guy was radio oriented. So it'll work over a twisted pair of wires. It'll work, in fact, there's a QR code version of sending messages too, where you can actually print a QR code and scan it at the other end and the message gets through. But it works really well over packet speeds. It works really well over LoRa speeds. And so we've started up around Hornsby, a few of us got interested and we're starting to try and see each other using radio. Now, we're only using LoRa because while it might work with packet, Reticulum has one characteristic. it's always encrypted. It's actually built off cryptographic principles to do its routing. So because we've got laws that are from 1940 or something when it was World War II and you're worried about keeping secrets from the government, we're not allowed to have encryption on handbands except in specific circumstances. So, enter LoRa, the lipid bands or the ISM bands, we're allowed to use those and we're allowed to do whatever we want over those. So that's great. So the most common ones you see are at like notionally 915 megahertz. About 902 to 928 or something I think is the Australian allocation. And you can do sort of what you want in there. And then these LoRa radios use a chirp spread spectrum methodology to get various throughputs and bandwidths. There's different coding rates, etc. So you can get everything from about a kilobit through to, I don't know, like 30 kilobits or something over the link. You can get reasonable speeds by trading off signal-to-noise ratio and distance and all of those things.
What software platforms is it run on?
It's written in Python, so it'll run on Windows, Linux, Mac OS. Yeah, pretty much everything. The network stack's currently implemented in Python, although someone's working on a C implementation. It's not quite complete. And then there's a microcontroller code that goes on the LoRa module. So that implements something called an R node, which the network stack understands. The network stack also understands KISS. So you can actually put that into KISS mode and use it with anything that understands KISS on that R node thing. Anyway, that's slightly off topic, but that was like, hey, we're doing this, but Craig's a little bit distant from me. He's over in Asquith, I'm over in Mount Colah. We'd like to see each other on a direct radio link with the LoRa stuff. We haven't had any success directly with 915 yet, although now I've actually finally built a gain antenna. We will probably go back to experimenting with that. So we're using I'm using omnidirectional antennas for it at home, and I wanted some gain. And then what we did find is we started playing around with the 433 ISM band. And it turns out that just with like little quarter wave antennas or folded dipole at Craig's, we've actually got really good signal to noise ratio between our houses. And we're currently set up where you're running about a 6 kilobit throughput over LoRa and serving up sort of the equivalent of text-based web pages and stuff like that. So it's very cool. It's fun to experiment with. But I thought to myself, I'd like to have a bit of gain. So I did start down the road of trying to see if I could do this at 430. And that's still in the plan, but you can, I've got a heavier gauge wire that I'm using now, but this was my first prototype and it worked. And I kind of just stuck a sheet of foil or something behind it to see if it works as a reflector, but mechanically this is more challenging to get the dimensions right. I'm probably going to need standoffs between the reflector and this, etc., to get it to be stable. But in the future, I'll try that. And once you get into this size, yeah, you know, could I just build a Yagi? Like now are the benefits of simplicity in that going the other way. So I probably will build one of these for 433. The other thing about this stuff is while I would like to be directional to Craig, for example, now when we had Steve with us, we don't anymore, Ballet Steve, but Craig's there, Steve was over there, so having something with a beam width and sort of pointing in the middle might have been a way, because this stuff meshes. And that's another reason to choose this antenna over something that was narrower for those purpose. So I'm still tending towards the biquad because you can kind of just roughly get it in the direction where you want some gain and get a benefit. So with that one being impractical, certainly in time for today's talk, 900's practical. So off to Bunnings last weekend. I'd been looking at this mesh. Now you can use a solid reflector, that's good, but as long as you use a mesh and as long as the size of these holes is smaller than 1/10 of a wavelength, it's going to be good enough. And ideally you should get to about 1/20 of a wavelength or less, and it becomes largely, there's not a great deal of difference between that and having a solid reflector. And thinking that eventually this might be mounted outside, thinking about wind loading and being able to mount it simply and have it unaffected, I think I'd like to go for mesh for this type of frequency. By the way, just as an aside, these are really great if you want gain on build a gain Wi-Fi antenna at 2.4. Really, really good for that. That way you could probably have a solid reflector because it's starting to get little. So anyway, I built this 900 one, I did the sums. I could have made a bigger reflector, but I was trying for compactness. So this is about the smallest you want to go for an effective reflector on it. and cobbled it together. You can see with the bracket, etc. No, I don't own a 3D printer. I'm going to blow right past that and buy a CNC milling machine. No, I'm joking. I just saw a show last night where they had one and I just went, God, I wish I owned a CNC milling machine. But anyway, a simple building bracket and some screws, got it there. And what I've done here is, it's just an end connector. So that's the back of a panel mount end connector. And I've got one piece of wire starting there, goes around there, through there, and back. That's the center that's not broken, I've just got onto the center piece. And I've just got two little solder tabs under a screw here. And they come, and I actually had this a bit wonky, this type of construction that you can see where it's not quite in the same plane on this one. And I had them soldered on the tabs, and I saw someone online that had bent the tabs up and went, so I bent the tabs up, and that way I've got the antenna all largely in one plane. I mean, once again, these things work so well that a little bit of compromise might lose a little bit of gain or have a non-ideal pattern, but I don't care. I'm still getting about 10, compared to this, I get roughly 10 dB. That's pretty good to me. I'm happy with that. Okay, so what do we have here? This is the little test rig I made for yesterday. And I ran the VNA over it, and I did some pruning of this, and I did some pruning of that, and they're both sitting right about 915, about 1.14 to 1 or something I got. And I'm actually we're running our reticulum stuff at 925.8, 926 meg. But even up there, it's up to 1.15 or something. I mean, they're broadband enough to work over that whole 915 band. Probably not quite as broadband for the 433 one. You might want to be a bit more specific. But once again, very forgiving. You build these, and then you want to be frequency agile in there and set up your LoRa anywhere in that band. Great. Just tune this for the center, and it's going to be golden across the whole sort of...
Bandwidth? Lowest of your bandwidth?
I've got a VNA later on. Maybe during lunch we can find out for ourselves. I'm not joking that I really have a busy life, and getting this ready for today. And yesterday I'm going, what am I going to use for a reference antenna? Those rubbishy little rubber things they give you? That'd do, because we just want to see. But then again, who knows what the gain of one of those is, even theoretically. I went, so I built this yesterday because, like I say, at least we all know a ground plane is 2 and a bit dBi, yeah, theoretically 2.15, somewhere in that range. So we've got a pretty reasonable expectation that this is about 2 dBi. Then whenever we see what we get with this, we know we're going to have some sort of reasonable reference. So I just made that yesterday, and yeah.
Do you know if it's true that if you have the thicker wire, you get
a bigger bandwidth? Yeah, I believe that's what everyone says, and I believe that to be true. And as I said, I had this narrow gauge wire, which would have done for the higher frequencies. You can see this one's using brazing rod. And then I was with Charlie, and we went to Hornsby Scrap Metal, and I got this gauge, which is pretty good, right? It's a good compromise between workable and being pretty stiff for this stuff. And I got a big half a roll of for like $40. So I thought, I can make lots of antennas with that, at least for VHF and UHF. I can even make some Yagis and some other things. So that's, and I can make ground planes. So I'm pretty happy with that purchase. Anyway, so now what I want to do, so I thought, well, how can I test, do a back-to-back testing for the antenna performance? And that's why I was building this for Reticulum, and thankfully Reticulum has a command line tool, which is the equivalent to a ping in IP, called a probe. And if you, the Reticulum is, because it's cryptography based, nobody knows the whole route that anything takes. Every node just knows where the next hop is. It's got lots of technology to determine that, but when you try to reach another endpoint, no matter how it gets there, when it comes back, if the nearest link is a radio link, it'll give you a signal noise ratio and an RSSI reading for those returned data. Simple test tool, right, to do A/B testing of antennas. So therefore, that's what I used. So let me have a look here. There were people were asking before. So if I look here, this is this is one of the apps that can use Reticulum to do things like, it's got this, it show your interfaces, and you can actually see that I've got another Reticulum thing there. It's a Raspberry Pi and a little LoRa modules just sitting next to the little coffee maker in the corner there. And it's just got the little stick-on patch antenna that came with the LoRa module, so whatever rubbish gain that is. But I can see that there, and actually I can do stuff like it's serving up a NomadNet page, which is basically equivalent to a web page, and I can see information come over it, so that's great. But if I look there and I go and look at its network information, I've programmed this to respond to pings, if you like, and it says, at the bottom it says probe responder at that long address is active. So if I now probe that 20F ending in C87, where is it? That one there. It goes over to it and I get these results. Let me just make that a bit bigger for everyone so we can see it. Oops, a bit too big. We can see there it's telling us, it's varying a bit in here, it's settling around -58 to -63. I think we've got a lot of signals bouncing around here, as you said, Craig, but that's currently hooked up, as you can all see, to that ground plane. So let's call that -60, just for simplistic purposes. And I'm just going to unplug the LoRa bodge because I don't want to have it blowing its PA because it's got no load. They are a bit fussy. So if you buy one of these and you start playing with it, make sure you definitely put some kind of load on your little LoRa module before you power it up, or you might be buying another module.
They're not very expensive.
They're about $30, but still,
Yeah,
let's not blow them up if we can help it.
buy lunch for that.
Just put some damper on things.
All right, so now I'm pointing pretty much at roughly that thing, a little high, it's down there, but anyway, it's a comparison. And if I plug it back in, the cool thing is about this app here is it's actually going to show which interfaces are up and down. Give it 1 second. We can see that the Heltec V3, which is that LoRa module, went red because I unplugged the interface. And then if I refresh, now that I've plugged that module in, I expect it to come green again. Come on.
Is there a boot up time?
Hey?
Is there a long boot up time?
No, it's really quick. It's basically the Python code is just watching, and in about a second it usually brings the interface back up. Not sure why. Just make sure everything's still good. So I'd expect that to come back really quickly. Let's try down at the command line and see if it's picked it up. Okay. No. Of course it's going to fail. I mean, I've done this A/B test so many times. Maybe if I just click the app and... it's saying the interface is up. and restart it just to be sure. And then... up, and then we'll try again. Come on. Alright, so chances are 3 interfaces are online. There you go. It's saying it's up. Alright, so. Alright. So that's saying -48 roughly. It's pretty solid with 48, I guess, because it's directional. It's not as compromised as that in this environment. So I'm going to call that at least 10 dB of gain. So there you go. Ta-da! The gain antenna that's useful at 9:15. And when I finally make this, now that I know these are the dimensions, etc., and roughly what I have here works, I will make it a bit more rugged so I can have it outdoors and potentially make some more of them. Because I bought a sheet of this. Actually, I've got enough left to make a reflector for 433. So that's next cab off the rank. So that's it. Any questions?
Yeah. What's the significance? You keep talking about 9:15. Means nothing to me.
Okay, so there are a number of bands that you're able to use completely unlicensed on a non-interference type basis for garage door openers and all sorts of other things. And two of the bands that are available in Australia, one is between about 902 and 928 megahertz, and I think you're allowed to use, there are EIRP limits that we might be skirting around the edge of.
Below 915 is mobile phone in Australia. So
Right.
you use 915 to 920.
Oh, 915 and up, fair enough. But we're using yeah, you're right.
Is the 433 European?
433 is also available in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And European has like 868 or something rather than the 900 one. Yeah. So anyway, it's that free band, but we're using 900, like I said, 926 or 925.875 or something is the frequency I used here. So that's why the 915, that's one reason. And then the 433, same. It's a lipid band, actually allows a fair bit higher radiated power than the 900 band does. So the 900 is really, really popular with people who do mesh-tastic. Look that up. Mesh-tastic is insanely popular, but only moderately interesting because all you can do is send messages. Reticulum's a complete network stack, so I kind of like that better. But a lot of people play with this 915 and go for long distances sending each other messages with these little cheap modules.
How many channels can you fit into that ISM?
Lots.
I mean, how wide is it?
Well, how long's a piece of string? You can go to 500 kilohertz wide.
You decide.
Yeah, you decide 500 kilohertz wide down to about, I think the smaller spreads are around 60 kilohertz wide. So it's sort of in that range. You've got a few parameters you can play with, obviously power. You can play with, if I have a look here, I decided for this interface, you actually...
For auto collision avoidance resistant, you know, like
you have to write that on top of it. So these ARNSW software and the Reticulum software is going to do a CSMA type thing. It's going to listen first and try, and then if it's got another transmission, it's got to back off and everything. So yeah, it's so I'm running, as you can see there, I'm running 925.875. I've done a 250 kilohertz bandwidth. Hey? No, it's its own chirp spread spectrum. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's a whole. It's a spread spectrum modulation called chirp modulation. So it's very broad spread spectrum technique.
it's a pulse. It's a pulse.
Yeah, and then there's forward error correction, and the more bits you use for forward error correction, the more reliable the link, but the lower throughput. So you've got lots of things to play with. So you've got the bandwidth, you've got your power, you've got your coding rate, you've got your spreading factor, and all of those things.
Got to agree with your.
Yes, they have to match. Yes, you have to have pre-agreed with the other person on all these parameters. So which we have, and Craig and I play around with 433. The smaller the spreading factor, the higher the throughput. So we'll run for a week on one, and it's pretty reliable. So we just go down one more, and we've gone from like less than a kilobit, 1.5 kilobits to 3 kilobits to about 6 kilobits at the moment throughput between our houses. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, 433 is obviously better for what we're doing than 915. But you've got both. So you can build networks where you're sort of backhauling on one and accessing on the other. Anyway, it wasn't meant to be a Reticulum talk, but it is very interesting if you all want to look into it. But yeah, these LoRa modules are cheap, and playing with that stuff is a lot of fun. And it links back to our hobby. We can make antennas, and we can talk to each other and enjoy ourselves.
Just a quick off the ball question. Most things are Android, I notice, with that much radio.
Yes.
I use that one.
Yeah.
But I find you getting all,
It's hard. So there is a good mobile app called, it's a pretty good mobile app called Sideband. It's a bit quirky, but it works pretty well. And it's written for Android. And so you've got lots of choice to do a mobile app. There's one guy that ported it to Apple, but he's having a hissy fit over licensing, and he's running an old version of the network stack. So it's basically useless at the moment, which is a bit sad. So yeah, having an iPhone. In fact, if I want to play with this, what I do is I have a Raspberry Pi at home that's always on, and I have a web clip on here. And that app that we're looking at right now, that Mesh Chat app, that's actually just an Electron app. There's a version of it. If I go to my browser, and I go to here, this is a copy of that running on my Pi. And so if I want to play with it on my iPhone, I just point my browser on the phone to this URL. And the interface is actually well written. It's written by a New Zealand guy called Liam Cottle. And he, if it's up at the moment, I mean, I don't expect you all to see this, but there you go. That's it on the phone. And if you go to the network, you can scroll over, and he's actually made everything fit. It adapts to mobile really well. So that's what I use with the phone at the moment. But you're right, being in the Apple ecosystem, but everything else is fine. It's Raspberry Pi, Mac OS is Unix. It runs, as long as you've got Python on there, it's you're off to the races. It works over Wi-Fi, it works over Ethernet. So at home, if you set two computers up, you just on you're on the same Wi-Fi, it's just going to work. All right, I've probably used up my time roughly. Any other questions? Who thinks a Biquad's a good antenna for sort of UHF and up? Yeah, I really like them. Yeah, and they're, this mounting arrangement, I won't hand this around right now, it's a bit fragile, but I'll leave it here, and you're welcome to come up or approach me in the break and we'll have a look. This at the moment is just 25mm PVC, which fits an end connector pretty well, and so it sits in there. Obviously, before I put this outside, I want to tighten this up, spray this stuff to keep the rust away from it, and come up with some method to put some goop around here or a little box or something to waterproof the front of it. But otherwise, then your feed's easy. It's just whatever run you want of decent coax. Or the thing about these is you can choose, if you're doing it for the LoRa, you can choose to mount the radio as close to the antenna as you like, and then try and backhaul it. Either it'll work over Bluetooth back to the rest of the system, for example, or you could run a longer USB cable. I think USB-C will go up to about 10 metres or something, theoretically. So the cool thing is you've got options to reduce your RF loss, because you can really put the transceiver right up behind the antenna if you want to. So that's one of the cool things about these little modules. They also approached me later on. The LoRa module that I'm talking to at the other end, if it's in front of the coffee machine, you can see a little bit of pink. Well, that's the anti-static foam that it came in. The module is two little boards this big, stacked one on top of the other, and it's a microcontroller and a radio module. Tiny, tiny, tiny things, and if you buy the right version, they just sip power. They'll run off a little battery and a solar panel pretty much indefinitely.
Is that how they do those electric bikes, public electric, battery bikes?
I think they just use cellular, don't they?
Which is us?
I think they're cellular.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the easiest way to get
I guess.
great coverage and good throughput. All right, thank you.
They've got Raspberry Pis in them.
Hey?
I believe they've got
They
Raspberry Pis.
could well do, yeah.
They wait for long.
Hey?
That's every word for it.
Oh, it's hard to get out of it.
All right, thank you. I'll put a minute to the next speaker, Julie.